Hello everyone and welcome along to Racing Weekly. My name is Rishi Persad alongside Sam Turner, bringing you this podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Sam Turner alongside me as we look ahead to the Cheltenham Festival with Pat Cooney from Bet365. We've also got Paul Ferguson, who's a man who has studied the stats and trends for Weatherbys, his Weatherbys betting guide for a number of years and has proved a very successful way to look at the festival. We're also going to be joined by Bryan Cooper, the Gold Cup winning jockey, to look ahead to his rides at the festival, plus one or two other horses along the way. Sam, I know that there's lots of racing going on left, right and centre as we get there, but I can't help thinking of anything but the festival right now. Tell me you're the same.
You've quickly consigned Manchester United's defeat.
The what?
Defeat Manchester United.
I thought we played really
We're
well.
not talking about football anyway. Wolves didn't turn up either. No, it is all about Cheltenham now, isn't it? Eventually, we're on the cusp of the meeting, thankfully. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some more idea about which horses are running in which races. That might help us a little bit as form students, allegedly. And we can then start to pick our way through some of those tricky races.
Well, speaking of picking our way through tricky races, let's start our festival focus by looking ahead to day one of Cheltenham 2022. Well, just before we get into the festival, a brief reminder of Oddschecker's Cheltenham Super Service. Reminder of the festival, just a week away. This year, Oddschecker doing the hard yards for you. You can be the first to hear of market movements, the latest news and all the entries, plus the best bookmaker offers ahead of the greatest show on turf. All you need is an email address and you can sign up using the link in the YouTube description or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Sam Turner and I are going to start off with race one on day one. It's a race that we've talked about a lot. It's the Supreme Novices Hurdle. But
we're still none the wiser.
Do we know who's even going to go off favourite? Do we know who's going to line up?
Well, the one thing we do know from the last time we talked about it is that Nicky Henderson's horses are going through a quiet spell. They're really a bang out of Nick. I mean, you just look down the list.
Bang
of
out of
horses.
Nick? Is that?
They're bang out of Nick.
I thought you did that on purpose.
No,
Nicky
they're bang out. Well, yeah, I'm not as clever as you. That's where you get paid the big money. So we know that obviously you've got two major players in this race, John Bond and Constitution Hill. And you would like to see a bit of form from the stable in the intervening 6, 7, 8 days before we roll into the Supreme Novices Hurdle, before you have any confidence in those two. Now, I know this time of year is difficult. The horses that they run don't tend to be the leading lights, understandably, because we're leading into the Cheltenham Festival. But you'd like to see one or two of the supposed second string run big races.
The one thing I would say, though, is that he's been pretty clear who his Cheltenham Festival team is and has almost treated them properly for a preparation for Cheltenham. So he's such a brilliant trainer. I mean, his record, obviously, he doesn't need me or you sitting here on Racing Weekly to say what a great trainer he's been. But when it comes to preparing horses for the big day at the festival, I'm less worried by his form of other runners.
Yeah, and look, it is dangerous to assume that a yard's bang out of Nick, because they could go, wherever the racing is on Monday, have a treble, and all of a sudden those calculations go out of the window. But it's just a point to bear in mind if you're looking to back Constitution Hill at 9-4 now. Okay,
and who would you back right now?
I've nailed my colours to the Dynamo mast for some little time now. I seem to have been championing his chance in this race for weeks on end, ever since he blitzed that field at Punchestown. There's been one or two positives to come out of the race. I think the little Yank, who got beat 49 lengths, came out and won and finished third in the DRF handicap won by Larry and Wonder. No, Good Time Johnny, that was the race. So there's been one or two positives, albeit at a respectful distance to Dynamo, so I'll stick with him.
And I'm sticking with Sir Gerhard, even though the last week has been extraordinary, because scouring social media to try and understand any sort of like little hints or any clues of where he's going to go, and then one day you read he's nearly odds on for the race according to some people, and then in the next tweet or whatever you'll see someone say he's out to 6-1 for the,
and he's shortened up for the Ballymore.
My heart's going like that, so I have no idea. But if he were to turn up, it'd still be Sir Gerhard.
Still be your pick, absolutely.
The Arkle, Edwardstone. Now you, myself, Steve Mellish had a good conversation about that race, and
we did.
Edwardstone was selection for myself and Steve. 9-4 oddschecker grid. Blue Lord 7-2. Sticking with Riviere de Tel, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I think she's a very solid bet. I know Bet365 are 9-2 at the time of recording. I think that's very fair. I think she's the best that the Irish have. I take on board Horton Calor and St Sam, people are trying to make cases for them, that we haven't seen the best of them yet, but Horton Calor arrives off the back of a fall. St Sam, I didn't think he jumped particularly great at Leopardstown. I thought he did well to hang in for as long as he did. But I just think her form's sort of different class. You know, it's the Fernie Hollow line of form.
Yeah.
I thought she ran really well in the Irish Arkle, but for the failure of the last, then I think she'd have won there, and she'd be comfortable second favourite behind Edwardstone. I'm fearful of him because he's a strong stayer at 2. He's got great technique. He's been round Cheltenham a dozen times, and he's just the type of horse that is going to really relish the rigours of the race. But I like her. Yeah,
I can't disagree with anything you say. She's, I'm sure, a player. Edwardstone very solid as well. The other race we've spoken a lot about on the opening day is the Champion Hurdle. No surprise there. And Honeysuckle 4-7 on the oddschecker grid. Appreciate it 7-2. Tuapu 8-1. Epatante 11s. Nicky Henderson very confident about, much more confident than I imagined that he would be at this stage, because yes, she's done well to a degree, not as well as she used to in the past, but she's run very well to win her races this season.
Yeah,
dead heat and win.
I must admit, I couldn't bet Honeysuckle at 4-7. I just couldn't.
Would Epatante be an alternative for you?
Yeah, but I think we've got a couple more pieces of evidence. But like, Honeysuckle's been sort of 4-6 for as long as I can remember, certainly from winning the Irish Champion. But Appreciate It has been parachuted into the race from nowhere, really, or been confirmed as a runner. Tuapu put up a really good performance to winning.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him.
So I think the race has almost taken on a different sort of quality to it. Adagio's confirmed that he's in good nick. He ran really well. Okay, that form's a mile away from Honeysuckle, and it's not going to have Honeysuckle connections shivering and shaking. But it's a solid run, and he likes Cheltenham. So I think all of a sudden now there's half a player, or there's a full player in opposition to Honeysuckle. So at 4-7, I think she can win for that. For me, I think she's the most likely winner. That's obviously hardly controversial, but I do think there's a bit more strength and depth now.
I would love to see a big run from Tommy's Oscar. I think it would be one of the great stories of the festival.
A great weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Nutswell winning on the weekend, and they've only got 6 horses. 6. They need to find someone to look after the cows for them when they go off to Cheltenham for the day, in order to allow them to be at the festival.
The last situation was Norton's Court, wasn't it? So it's a winning system, isn't it? Find someone to look after your cows and go and win a Grade 1 at Cheltenham.
So I would love him to run well, and he's improving. So
I think there were definitely worse outsiders than him in the race.
To stick a couple of quid each way on Tommy's Oscar, 25s on the grid. Anything else on the opening day? There's obviously the Ultima, the Boodles, the Mares Hurdle, and the National Hunt Chase.
I like the tide turns in the Boodles. It's very unoriginal. He's second favourite, but I thought that run at Gorham was really eye-catching. Everybody's seen it, so I won't labour it too much. But I think he looked quite progressive up to that point as well, and that got him qualified for this race. So I can totally get that. I think he's got a fair mark. And I like Run Walfred in the last race yet again, in the National Hunt Chase yet again. Not very original, but he fits a lot of the right components that he's got. He boasts a lot of the components you need to win this race. I think he'll go well in this, and then perhaps have a look at the National with him.
All right, a couple of others I'll mention. Also in the Boodles, HMS Seahorse, who was beaten by the Tide Turns. He's had 3 runs now over hurdles. He finally won the other day. Just looks like he's getting his act together now over hurdles, and lovely pedigree.
Class horse.
Yeah, he was pretty useful on flat. Didn't actually win.
6 was he? Did he get to the flat?
He was a useful horse on the flat. Got beaten in a maiden at the end of the season, but he looks like maybe hurdling is going to bring out a little bit more in him. So I quite like him, and obviously the weight turn with the Tide Turns will give him a bit of a shot. And Noble Yates in the Ultima for Emmett Mullins and Sam Whaley-Cohen. He's not guaranteed over the distance, the trip, but just looking at the way he races, I suspect that this is
fairly big eye catcher, wasn't he?
Yes, exactly. This is the plan. So those are 2 outside of the obvious races for me. That's a look at day 1. Something that we've.
What's your best bet day 1?
Good question, because obviously it depends on where Sir Gerhard runs.
Just stick to it.
If Sir Gerhard turns up in whatever race it is, but Supreme, I'm hoping he turns up in the Supreme. I think he is a class. I think he's a champion hurdler of the future, personally.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could almost see him getting beaten in Supreme and still being a champion hurdler of the future. Run Walfred, I'll go with.
Okay. Well, that's a look at day 1 of the festival. Chronologically, it's time to move on now to day 2. Right, now time to look ahead to day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival. But before we do and we start talking about races like the Ballymore, we're delighted to be joined by Paul Ferguson, who's the author of Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. Paul's going to give us his insights, talk about trends and stats of the festival. Paul is someone who's been doing this for a very long time and very successful as well. So it's a real privilege to have him on the show. Paul, welcome along to Racing Weekly. First of all, how much are you looking forward to what's coming up next week?
Yeah. Can't wait for the action to get started now. I know you're probably in the similar situation yourselves. You've got that many previews to do in the past few weeks and the next week or so. So I'm really looking forward to the action getting started next Tuesday, and we can kick on from there.
So we're kind of focusing on day by day, talking day 1. We're focusing on day 2 with you. So let's start off with a race that, I mean, Sam and I have talked about the Ballymore a lot of times, but it's very difficult for us to be adamant what we want to talk about because of the uncertainty that still surrounds the race. How are you playing it? How's it shaping up in your own mind at the moment?
Yeah, I think this is one of the races more than any other where we could really do with knowing which horse Willie Mullins is going to run. Obviously, we probably won't find that out until we see declarations on Sunday and who he decides to declare in the Supreme. But for me, either Dysart Dynamo or Sir Gerhard, whoever steps up and trip, would definitely be the most intriguing runner. That whoever he runs will be a short price favourite, but I think he'd be worthy of that position in the market because I don't think it looks a stellar renewal of the Ballymore by any means. And I think either of those pair would have a bit more turn of foot than the likes of Journey With Me and Ginto, who currently are at the head of the betting of those who we know will turn up.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, when you look at this race and as you heard from Paul, Dysart Dynamo and Sir Gerhard, you know that they're going to go off favourite, whichever one turns up. Do you have a personal preference of who you'd like to run in the Ballymore, ignoring what happens with the Supreme?
Yeah, if it were mine, I'd run Sir Gerhard, which won't be music to your ears, obviously, having been a big fan of him for the Supreme. I just think he's the one that probably would settle better. I don't know how Paul feels about this, but Dysart Dynamo for me just looks all explosive speed. You know, admittedly he's a good blend of speed and class and latent ability, as is Sir Gerhard. But I think Sir Gerhard probably just settle a little bit better in front or just at taking a lead, and probably is the more long-term project. So I think this race will probably suit him a little better. I could see him getting into a rhythm better over 2.5 than I could Dysart Dynamo.
Anything from your stats and trends with regards to the Ballymore that any horse in particular falls into a category, Paul, that you think might be worthy of mention?
Yeah, I'd just touch upon what Sam said there. I'd be echoing his sentiments personally. That Sir Gerhard would be the one I'd be looking at stepping up in trip. Just the way he jumped last time at the Dublin Racing Festival, I think the longer distance might help in that regard as well. And as Sam said, I think he would settle. Him and Ginto are probably horses that stand out in regards to the fact that horses who have won an Irish point-to-point or bumper and a graded novice hurdle during the past 12 years, only 13 horses have ticked all 3 boxes in this race and 6 of them have won. So those are the profile horses for the race. On the negative side of things, the shallow hurdle statistics wheeled out year on year, and that currently stands at 0 from 18. So that's a negative for Stage Star's chances.
I like hearing that because I think Ginto's a horse that has an exciting future. I mean, obviously he's come from the point-to-point filly. He's won the point-to-point over 3 miles, and I think the step up from what he's done so far over hurdles and distance is really going to suit him.
I think he's the type of horse as well who'll be better in a better race. I just think he's playing around a little bit at the moment, learning on the job, but I think in a better quality of race, you can just see him coming up the hill strongly. And I quite like those horses that save a little bit for themselves and you don't quite know how good they could be. So I think there's more to come from him, certainly.
Okay. So I think we're just going to crystallise our thoughts, if we can, on a race that's so hard to be adamant. But Paul, you like Sir Gerhard, should he turn up? Or Dysart Dynamo?
Yeah, I do. I like the pair of them wherever they turn up, to be honest. But I think, as Sam said, if the decision was down to me, I'd probably be running Dysart Dynamo over 2 miles and chancing Sir Gerhard at the trip.
You are very wise, Paul, and I totally agree with you that it should be Dysart Dynamo as well. Sam, if you had to
yeah, I'd go outside the box a little bit with 3 Stripe Life, who chased home Sir Gerhard at Leopardstown. He's got loads of stamina in his pedigree. I really want to see him over 2.5 and perhaps 3 in time. So he's double-figure price at the moment on the oddschecker grid. I'll take a chance with him, non-runner, no bet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll be gutted if So Gerhard runs in this race, but if he does, I think he's too good. But Ginto, I agree with Sam. I think he's a horse that is still learning on the job, and I think there's a lot more to come from him, especially as he's stepping up in trip. Now, Paul, you were just talking about how this is a race that we could really do with some certainty on, the Ballymore. Well, what about the Festival Novice Chase, or a race where we've got, let's go through the list. Galopin de Champ, according to oddschecker here, 5 to 6 favourite. Bob Ollinger 6 to 4. Brave Man's Game, what is he? 2 to 1.
2 to 1. Yep.
Ahoy Signor 5s. L'Empresse 5s. And it's quite possible that we won't see all of them in that
it's
race.
Quite possible we won't see 3 of those 5.
Exactly. So how do you go about that one, Paul?
Yeah, at this stage, I think it's certainly one of the races where you hold fire, unless you've got a stronger view on one of the bigger priced horses, because I think a race like this, as Sam's just said, 3 of the top 5 in the market could come out. So there's possibilities of the bigger priced horses contracting. So I would say, if there is something at a larger price that you like, you could probably consider backing it now. If you're something towards the top of the market, maybe hold fire. I think Ahoy Signor and Brave Man's Game will definitely turn up. That's obviously Galopin de Champ, we don't know. Bob Ollinger, I'd be amazed if he stepped up and trip. I don't think it's really an option for him, even though he's sitting second in the betting. And I did see that he did mention L'Empresse could be considered for the race. He said it'll be the ground that'll determine where he'll run. I'd like to see him run the Turners, to be honest, and then maybe step up and trip for 3 miles at Aintree. We've seen that the past couple of years with horses who finished second, and indeed Chantry House won that race and then stepped up for the Mildmay last year. So I'd take that route with him. So as Sam said, this could cut up considerably at the top of the market.
Yeah, I would also like to see L'Empresse run in the Turners and then step up in distance a little bit later on.
Yeah.
How would you play it?
Yeah, I just went back and watched his fencing again, in the Dipper and also at Sandown this morning, and just how fleet-footed he is. I hope I haven't talked to him on the floor there, but obviously you've got the little question mark as well over some of Venetia's horses. Yeah. There's a little bit of an issue there, which is really disappointing. I don't mind him whichever race he goes for, to be honest. I think he'll get 3. I think the 2.5 is perfect for him as well, just the way he's just such a high cruising speed, and he nicks half a length at every fence.
Yeah.
He's got Pic D'Orhy 20 lengths behind him from the Sandown performance. He's come out and won a Pendle since. I think we are in danger of underestimating him a little bit, L'Empresse, just because he's British.
I agree.
I think in years gone by, I think he would have been vying for favouritism probably.
Yeah. Paul, who do you think is the most talented of the 5 that we've mentioned, just in terms of the ability they've shown for a race like the Turner, should they all turn up? And obviously Ahoy Signor is heading to the Brown Advisory. But when you look at the quintet as a whole, who do you think is the best?
Tough question, that, Rishi. I would say, obviously, on hurdles ability, so maybe natural ability, Bob Ollinger, but I don't think anyone could have watched Galopin de Champ's chasing debut and not being hugely excited. I can touch upon a couple of statistics for both of them regarding each race shortly when we touch on a few negative trends for some of the short price horses. But just in terms of natural ability, I would say Bob Ollinger, but possibly in terms of what they've seen over fences so far this season, I'd lean towards Galopin de Champ.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably. I think it's all about trip, though, isn't it? I mean, if you're talking to me about a future Gold Cup winner, you're saying Galopin de Champ, aren't you? But, if you're talking about a Ryanair winner, perhaps, then you're thinking, L'Empresse or
I think probably
Paul
apart
Ollinger.
from Ahoy Signor, you would say that about the other quartet. You'd see them all as horses that could... Maybe Brave Man's Game, not so much a Ryanair horse, but... Yeah. He does jump and travel pretty nicely.
He does.
That's the beauty of it. And I was actually arguing with someone this morning that it's a shame that we have the options.
Yes.
In the old days, all 5 would end up in the Sun Alliance Novices Chase, wouldn't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Just one question I've got for you, Paul. What's the Corto Star Novices Chase stat coming into this race? Is that a good stepping stone?
Not for the winner. No winner of the Corto Star has ever gone on and won the Brown Advisory, or RSA as it was. Plenty of horses have reversed the form. But as we go on to talk about the stats shortly, I would just say that I still emphasise the fact that they should be used as a guide for some people and not literally hang your hat on these statistics. We'll touch upon a few negative stats shortly, but I think you still have to assess each horse individually in their own merit and use the statistics accordingly. In terms of Brave Man's Game, as I say, no Corto Star winner has ever gone on and won the Brown Advisory, but again, you could look at it slightly differently. Mike Bite would have done the double had he not fallen at the final fence. He was a long way clear, of course, but we have seen in the past plenty of horses turn the form around, obviously a completely different configuration. So that would obviously give hope to fans of a horse and yaw.
So Paul, just in summary, if we could get your selection for the Brown Advisory and maybe one or two interesting stats or trends that we ought to be wary of.
Yeah, in terms of the horse himself, having watched his 2 victories back at Leopardstown, I actually think going up in trip will help Galopin Des Champs. People seem to think that the Turner's over a similar distance, but it's actually a furlong and a half shorter than the Ladbrokes Novice Chase, what he won last time, and he was strong at the line. But if he does indeed go for this race, there's a few key trends that he will fall down on. He's only a 6-year-old. Only 3 of the past 27 winners were younger than 7. He's a French bred, something that Brave Man's Game will also have to overcome. French breds in the past 15 years are north from 36 since Stardom O'Hayes on one. And horses, we've only seen one winner this century who won the race on the back of 2 runs. On the flip side of that, the 2 6-year-old recent winners were Florida Pearl and Don Poli, who were both trained by Willie Mullins, and both of them had only had the 2 starts. So perhaps it's something that Willie has in mind with his staying novice chases, that he likes to give them a slightly lighter campaign. But there is a few key statistics that Galopin Des Champs will need to overcome if he does run in that race.
Okay, interesting.
Interesting stuff, yeah, most definitely.
Sam, your thoughts on Brown Advisory winner?
Oh, I don't know if I've got any yet until I see the final line. It's so difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think if L'Empressé does go up in trip, I would be really interested in him. I think if it dries out a little bit, even with Venetia's horses just under that little bit of a cloud.
Yeah. What about the Queen Mother Champion Chase, Paul? What are your thoughts on the shape of that race and some of the stats for that?
Yeah, just as a race itself, I think anyone looking forward to the festival can't help but be excited by this race. Hopefully we'll get a similar matchup as we did in the Clarence House Chase. So obviously there's only a length between Shishkin and Energamine, and this is going to be a deeper race. It's not just a 2-horse race. Obviously Chac and Poursoir thrown into the mix, and Nuve Negra. And I think one thing that will be key in this race is tactics, because obviously both Energamine and Chac and Poursoir like to get on with things and race prominently. But is Willie Mullins really going to want the 2 of them going head to head? It's going to be detrimental to either or both of their chances, I would have thought. If a really strong pace could set things up for Shishkin like it did in the Arkle last year, or even Nuve Negra to come through and pick up some of the pieces maybe.
I agree. Tactics is going to be crucial.
But there looks plenty of pace as well. You've got your All Mankind's, Dunvegans, other horses that want to make it. It's going to be fast and furious, I would suggest.
How do you see it shaping up? And are you?
I think he's bomb-proof, Shishkin.
Yeah. Are you? And this is for you as well, Paul. Are you adamant that Energamine's is the better option than Chac and Poursoir, or do you buy into Willie Mullins saying that he would choose where he Paul Townend and Chac and Poursoir every day of the week?
I don't know. I don't know if it's partly my games on Willie's part, or he really believes that. I don't know. Obviously, what we've seen from Chac and Poursoir in Ireland is not the same as what we've seen from Chac and Poursoir the twice he's come to England. There's been factors towards those lack of performances, but for me, I would think that Paul Townend would choose Energamine personally. I don't think he'd done much wrong at all at Ascot. The race, the Champion Chase, is 168 yards shorter than it was at Ascot. Literally, if you just take that into account, you would think if you stopped the Ascot race 168 yards short, you would have probably run out a comfortable winner. I know it's not as easy as that, and the track is totally different. Everyone seems to think that he would be slightly better on a right-handed track, but I would still think that Energamine is the one on an upward curve from Willie's yard. So yeah, I would still think he was the main contender and challenger to Shishkin.
Okay.
If he's A1 Energamine, he's almost looking an each way bet to nothing at 4-1, isn't he?
Well, at the moment, according to the oddschecker grid, you've got Shishkin 4-6, Energamine 4s, Chac and Poursoir 9-2, and then you've got Nuve Negra 10s and bigger prices the rest. Is there anything outside the top 3, Paul, that we ought to pay attention to?
Not really. Well, Nuve Negra, I think, 4th in. I think I can see him running really well. And I say if the pace is fast and furious and maybe 1 or 2 go too hard in front, obviously he'll be ridden right out the back by Harry. And I think he'll come through beating horses as he did last year. The drier the ground, the better his chance, I would say. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he ran a massive race. I'd expect him possibly to hit the frame.
Yeah, I was with him last year. I thought he could have won, really. But you always do when you see a finisher like that, don't you? Yeah,
and it highlights just what a good race it is this year when you've got the fact that when who was arguably a bit unlucky, is 10-1, and then you've got 2 winners of the race at much bigger prices in Politolog and Put the Kettle On. But That's what makes it so exciting, the fact that we've got such a top-class renewal. So we've had a look at 3 of the big races on day 2. Also on day 2, we've got the Coral Cup, the Cross Country, the Grand Annual and the Bumper. Paul, for those remaining races, are there any interesting things that you want to highlight for us?
St. Felician in the Coral Cup would be a horse with the right kind of profile, lightly raced, improving type. You could see him definitely ending up into a graded class performer in time towards the top of the weight. That's the kind of thing I look for in that race. Race at 149, you wouldn't say he was chucked in, but he lost his unbeaten record in the Limestone Lad recently in the 3rd from that race. Whiskey Sour obviously franked that form at the weekend. So I think he'll be better than the handicapper in time, whether he's got the experience. I haven't really got a strong view on the cross country or Grand Annual at this stage. The Champion Bumper kind of looks like last year's Champion Bumper to me, in that you've got 2 outstanding candidates. Facile Vega obviously blew everyone away with his 2nd performance at the Dublin Racing Festival. And American Mike hasn't done anything wrong for me. I think the market there kind of reflects a bit of a recency bias, though, and I wouldn't have that much of a discrepancy between the 2 of them. So purely on a value and a price basis, I would side slightly with American Mike. I think he's bred to appreciate better ground as well, more so than Facile Vega. So I think he's got a couple of things in his favour, and I'd expect him to really put it up to him in the Champion Bumper.
Okay, and just before we get an overview of the festival and some important stats and trends, Paul, what would be your best selection on day 2 of all the races? Difficult at this stage, obviously, with not knowing who runs where. If the Gerhard runs in the Ballymore, I know he'll be a short price, but I think he'd take the world of beating, to be honest. Sam, do you have a best selection for day 2?
Yeah, I'll probably go Grand Annual, Curse Sublime, I think.
Okay.
Hopefully he makes the race. I know he's also got the Arkle entry as well, and there was a bit of money for him yesterday, which was a bit disconcerting, but stable's starting to click into form, and obviously he's got a bit of form from Triumph Hurdles, etc. around there. Absolutely.
I'm going to put up Gull Road in the Coral Cup for the Twiston Davis team. Just looking through the form with Unexpected Party in that race at Cheltenham, where he beat Unexpected Party pretty convincingly by a couple of 2.5 lengths. He's running off 134. He's running off 134 then. He's running off 145 in the Coral Cup. Unexpected Party ran off 120 that day. He's running off 142. Yet Unexpected Party, according to the market, is 9-1 odds checker. And Gull Road is, where is he? 16s. So I thought there was value to be had with him in that race, and he's a tough horse as well.
He is very hardy.
He would be that selection. Last thing from you, Paul, the overview of the festival and any really key important stats and trends, particularly with some of the big favourites.
Yeah, I just highlighted a couple here. Starting on Tuesday, Gaelic Warrior obviously has been popular with a lot of people in the build-up to the festival since we seen that the fact that he would have a mark of 129 that was unveiled when he was given an entry on trials day in the handicap hurdle. I actually think agree with a lot of people. His French form does look that he could be potentially well treated, but for those who want to be against him now that he's a short price, and I think there'll be plenty that will, the Willie Mullins is 0 from 16 to date in the Fred Winter. He has gone close with a couple of runners in recent times. In 2019, Seldon Edge finished 3rd, and he was actually a similar type of Gaelic Warrior. He was a maiden in France and hadn't actually run for the stables. So he's trying to emulate, hopefully go 2 places better. And in 2021, he was 2nd, obviously last year with St. Sam. The race was actually won with Diego de Charmil, was a newcomer from France when Paul Nicholls won it last year, a couple of years ago. So it can be done, but you'd be wary of Willie Mullins' statistic in that race. And another from Mullins is on Tuesday, Statler in the National Hunt Chase. It's a race, obviously, a lot of people know we need experience, and your horse needs experience in that event. 9 of the past 12 winners had run 5 or more times over fences. 6 of those had run 8 or more times. Horses who've only run twice, it's a real negative for them. We've seen quite a few turned over in recent years. Next Destination last year was the latest example. 2019, Ballyward and OK Corral were the top 2 in the bet, and neither completed the race. So Statler might well be the classiest horse in the National Hunt Chase, but that lack of experience is obviously key for him.
Paul, really fascinating insight. Thank you so much. And before you go, I understand that there's a special code if anyone wants to take advantage of the guide.
You've got some brilliant authors in the guide this year, Paul.
Yeah, you don't have to be bored by looking at my pages this year. Some excellent editorial from the guest contributors this year.
So how do people get hold of that guide before the festival, Paul?
Yeah, it's available at weatherbysshop.co.uk, and when you put your book in the basket, if you key in the code RW22, RW's in lowercase, you'll receive £4 off, and that's from either the paperback or the digital or the bundle of both versions.
Okay, thank you very much. RW22, lowercase r and W. Paul, thank you very much. Enjoy the festival. Hopefully there'll be some certainty over the next week or so we can properly get stuck into previewing the races. But it's been brilliant hearing all the information that you've had. Thank you very much to Paul Ferguson. And we are now going to move on and talk about Thursday at the Cheltenham Festival. Well, to help us look ahead to the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival, delighted to have Pat Cooney of Bet365 alongside us. Pat, very exciting weekend for you just gone. Bet365 sponsoring up at Kelso, and it's possible that you might be handing out some more money again this year.
Yes, we did a year ago with the Shunter when he won, of course, and he went off a well-backed favourite at the Cheltenham Festival. A little bit different with Cormier this time around. He's got two engagements, the County Hurdle and the Coral Hurdle. I think the Coral, he's number 80 on the entries at the moment, so he's unlikely to get in that. He's 59 in the county, so there's a good chance he'll get in. I suppose he's a course winner at Cheltenham, of course, so I suppose if he runs, it would be around about 14 to 1, so a little bit different from a year ago with the Shunter when we were thinking, whose bright idea was this then?
And whose bright idea was it? Yours.
Pat Cooney.
Yours. You're still in a job, Pat. So.
I was gazing on the floor, trying not to attract attention when it was a question a year ago. But no, it was great atmosphere up there.
Yeah.
And it was a real fun day. Great weather as well. Lovely track. Recommend it to anyone.
Yes, I would endorse that. Great spot at Kelso Racecourse. But even better is if you're standing at the Cheltenham Festival backing winners, Pat.
Sure.
And you're going to help us as best as you can with the Thursday of the festival, looking through a few of the major races. The Turner is the first race we're going to start off talking about on the Thursday of the festival. Bob Bollinger, 5 to 4, oddschecker grid. Galopin de Champ, 5 to 4. L'Empresse, 9 to 2. Brave Man's Game, 11 to 2. How are you facing up to this?
Well, this is very much still a guess the runner race, isn't it? These horses have other engagements as well. You'd like it to be Bob Bollinger versus Galopin. With Bob Bollinger, I'm a little bit concerned. As good as he is, he's only had 2 races over fences. And I think, and the stats gurus will tell you need to have 3 or more normally to win this race. He's going there a little bit short of experience. No doubt he's jumped hundreds of fences at home. But nevertheless, the stats do say you should be having more than 2 races. So that's a reason to get a favourite beat. So I think that's probably the way we'll be approaching that race.
I guess people would say he's no ordinary favourite though, Sam. There's something special about him.
Yeah, exactly. But he's taking on a special horse, or 2. If L'Empresse and Galopin de Champ are in there against him, they are at least on an equal footing, quality-wise, talent-wise, natural ability-wise, and they've got a bit more experience over their fences. And okay, Galopin de Champ, he wasn't foot perfect last time at Leopardstown, but he was pretty good. But L'Empresse really is a quality jumper, probably one of the best novices I've seen jump for a long time.
I love him. I think he's a superstar. Just on a personal level, Pat, who is the likeliest winner for you?
I think Galopin de Champ, but I do take Sam's comments about L'Empresse on board. He has looked visually very good. As we're recording this, of course, Venetia Williams, they're not quite 100% at the moment. So that would be a little bit of a concern. Yeah. So all things considered, I think it points to Galopin for me.
All right. You're more taken by Sam's opinion of L'Empresse than mine. That's a put down, isn't it? I said the same thing as Sam, Pat. Let's talk about the Ryanair.
Yes.
Also on Thursday. Allaho blitzed his field last year. Likelihood is, looking through the race, I can't see anything that he ought to be worried about. There's a possibility of Conflated and Chanbleu being his most significant rivals. But
yeah, you do look at Allaho. I think he's on course to be the shortest price favourite in the entire meeting. And he's in that, I suppose he'll win section, isn't he? We're struggling to find legitimate rivals to him. He was visually the most impressive winner of the meeting last year when he absolutely blitzed the field. And he's got no harder task this time around, pending, the withdrawals that we're expecting to come out. Like you, Chanbleu, Conflated, they have chances, haven't they? But I think it's something that's going to have to go wrong with Allaho for this one not to win. I think you shouldn't really hang your hat on one particular horse, but he looks really, really very solid to me, and I would expect him to win.
Simple as that?
Yeah, probably. I do think Chambleur's the one horse that we don't know quite how good he could be. You know, he could be exceptional, and obviously he's been trained to the minute for one race and one race only. I probably, if I was looking at the race in the morning of the race and most of the main protagonists line up, I'd probably bet something like Fakir Duderie without the favourite. Right. You know, he's chased him home a number of times, hasn't he? He's just in the back end of Allaho for much of his career, Fakir Duderie. But you could sort of set your clock by him. He's a really solid individual, and if it did come up very soft on the Thursday, on the third day, I think he's got a great chance of at least making the frame and probably finishing second again. Conflated?
If this is the race he does indeed run in?
Yeah, I thought he got a masterful ride last time. Now, not to say he can't get another masterful ride here. I think it's the right race for him, most definitely. Yeah, I suppose he's an improver.
It's just how seriously do you take that last ride? And visually it looked very good, but...
He's beaten the Gold Cup winner.
He's beaten the Gold Cup winner, so why isn't he running in the Gold Cup? But then, of course...
was Tiger Roll not running in the Grand National? Hello?
Yeah, the Ryanair might be his race. I want to see him come out and run again. I'm still not sure about the actual merit of that performance. It looked good, but then when you marry it up to what he's done prior to that, you think, wait a minute.
Yeah, it was only 5 minutes ago. He was winning a handicap of 4-4.
Correct.
All right, so we're all in agreement. Allaho, but maybe the odd play against him if it's Fakir Duderie or Chambleur. The Stairs Hurdle. I think one of the hardest races of the meeting of the Grade 1 races. I think Flooring Porter 7-2. Time Hill 92, Champ 5s, Classical Dream 5s, Paisley Park 30-2, Asterion Forlonge if he runs in at 10s, Royal Kahala 10s. You can't rule out Sporting John, who's progressed this season, he's 12s. I think this is a nightmare race to be adamant about. I'd love to see Paisley Park win it from a heartwarming point of view. What's your thoughts, Pat?
Well, this is a race that's been very kind to bookmakers in recent years. Once we got rid of like Barracuda and Big Bucks and all of them, we have had we have had some shock results in this race. And I'm just looking at the front 5 that you've rattled off there. I think we can get them all beat for various reasons. I can find flaws in them all. Okay. So, you know, I could, well, flaws in Flooring Porter. Has he done much this year, really?
No, I don't think...
None of Gavin Cromwell's horses have they?
No.
That's the problem with this race, isn't it? Knowing what form the Cromwell barn is when we go into it.
And I say, like, Time Hill, again, doesn't really float my boat. Yeah. Classical Dream. Bad last time out, okay, but you know, spectacular prior to that. Yeah. Champ, disappointing last time out.
10 years of age.
Paisley Park, he's an accident waiting to happen at the start. This fella, isn't he, Paisley Park? Yeah. I don't know. I think this could be one of those. I wouldn't be afraid if I was having a play spot, just to lob in a couple of 33-1 chances. Liz Nagar Oscar. Former winner of the race.
Yeah. Pat, he's older than us.
Well, I know, but...
In fairness, the stable have said that he's been wrong, or not right for the last couple of seasons. They feel that this is the season that he's just sort of come back to his better form.
So I think you'll find us going into this race thinking, we could get the 5 favourites beaten in this race.
Well, it might be by Song for Someone. That'd be my 50-1 poke in the race. I'm desperate to try this horse over further. He's going in at the deep end here, you know, Grade 1. I think I'd like to have seen a quieter stepping stone for him than this. But he's worth a try. He runs really well at the track. He just looks as though he's out of love with the rhythm of those 2-mile races. He's just taking off his feet all the time.
All the time. I was just going to say, every time you watch him race, Aidan Coleman's pushing away from start to finish. It would be very, very awkward for Aidan Coleman to be sitting on Paisley Park, scrubbing him along at the flat spot where Song for Someone comes there travelling on the bridle, wouldn't it?
I just think he's got a bit of ability. I mean, he finished second to Buzz. I think Buzz would have nearly won this race.
I think Buzz would have been favourite for this race had he been in contention.
Okay, well, no Buzz. So
no Buzz.
You are going for a bit of a shot with Song for Someone at a big prize.
Yeah, I'm Classical Dream. At the front end.
Yeah. Liz Nagar Oscar each way.
Liz Nagar Oscar each way. 33s on the grid.
Yep.
I'm sticking with Paisley Park, 13-2. I'm hoping for a
he'll be
heartwarming story.
He'll be one fastest finger first one. If he jumps off level, then we'll all be giving him some sort of a chance. But he can't dig his heels in at the start, which he did last time.
You'd take a 5-length deficit at the start, wouldn't you?
Hopefully, well, the likelihood is they're going to go a good pace in that race. There's enough horses that like to get on with it. So hopefully, I
can't reiterate enough. Look at how the Gavin Cromwell horses are running in the lead up to the festival.
Definitely.
They were bang out of nick.
There are a few people with anti-post slips on a few of the Gavin Cromwell horses who'll be hoping that they perk up. So we've talked about the Turners, the Ryanair, the Stayers. Also on Thursday, we've got the Pertemps Final. We've got the Paddy Power Plate, the Mares Novices Hurdle, and the Kim Muir. I'll give you the floor, Pat, to talk about anything else in those races.
This is probably, in terms of punter friendly, the Thursday is the toughest one because there's 3 handicaps on the Thursday and there's only 2 on each of the other 2. So bookmakers, historically, you know, we lose on the Tuesday. I say we, from the bookmaking side of things. The bookmakers lose on the Tuesday, we lose on the Wednesday. So far, this sounds like a familiar story about my life. Carry on. We just make the cut, and we do okay on the Thursday, and we have a good set of results on the Friday. You get someone's a good Triumph Third winner. You always get a good result in the Albert Bartlett, and you might get a good Gold Cup winner. So Thursday's hard for punters because of the 3 handicaps. But you're giving them Allaho this time around. I think the one that I'm interested in the last race is my idea of perhaps the best bet of the day, though. So I'm going to keep my powder dry till then.
What's that? Sorry.
And the name is
Frontal Assault.
Okay.
Trained by Gordon Elliott. I actually backed this horse in the Martin Pipe conditional hurdle last year, and he nearly got brought down, and he still ran a race of immense promise. He's won over 3 miles over hurdles, and his form in 3 novice chases has been over around about 2.5 miles. Staying on. This is 3.25 miles. I've seen this film before. Gordon Elliott's won this race 3 times before. It's an amateur rider's race. Someone good's going to end up on him. You'd hope it was Jamie Codd because he's won this race 4 times before. That wouldn't be a surprise if he was on.
Stands a chance.
Yeah, so it'd be the first number you'd be looking at. And I just think he's no bargain, I don't think, because I think we've all seen him and we've all penciled him in as right, that's the one for that race then.
Yeah.
But I think he could win that race very easily. So I'm going to wait till the last race on Thursday.
Okay.
So long old afternoon for me.
Well, I think you've got a few things to distract you along the way.
Given a lovely sympathetic ride by a friend of the show, Bryan Cooper, last time, wasn't he?
Perfect prep. The perfect prep.
Perfect prep. Yeah.
Something on Thursday?
Yeah, I'll go to one of those impossible handicaps, the Paddy Power Plate, and the French horse or the French import Celeb Delaine is his favourite. But I like Imperial Alcazar. I think there's a lot of stats that suggest that those that win on trials day have a good record in this race. He's got good course and distance form. He sees out the trip well, and he races prominently, which I think is massive on the new course.
Okay, I'll mention 2 in addition. Like it. Well, only because you've already put one up in the Paddy Power Plate. The Glancing Queen of Alan King's. Should she run there? I think it's L'Empresse that beat her last time, and there were only 2 horses that travelled well in the race, or the 2 horses that travelled best were L'Empresse and her. She got to him and then he showed his class, but she beat the rest very well at Cheltenham, so she is one in that. The other one that I quite like in the Pertemps Final, remastered of David Pipes, who's back over hurdles. He did run obviously in the qualifier earlier in the season. This is a horse that could possibly have won the Ladbrokes Trophy at Newbury and ran well twice at Haydock. He was behind Royal Pagaille last time. And he's got a £10 lower mark over hurdles, and he wasn't a bad novice hurdler. I'll just give him a bit of a shot.
So I'm intrigued, given how well the Irish did last year. You're both going for
well, the handicap system has changed this year, Pat.
Yeah.
So why wait till it seeds itself to everyone else?
Yes.
You need to get ahead of the game. That's the way. Genuinely,
Yeah.
I'd like to. If the handicap. The way the handicappers are looking at these races, I don't want to wait till everybody else is cottoned onto. I'm thinking, let's go now and hope that we.
Premature. Premature.
It's oft been said of me. It's oft been said of me. Last thing, Pat, before we close off this segment, your best bet of the Cheltenham Festival.
I've thought long and hard about this question, and I think there's a horse that's still, I think, fair value really. It's the Fox Hunters, Billaway. Beaten a shorthead in the race a year ago, was second the year before. He's round about 3 to 1. He's been trained, of course, with this race in mind, and he wore first-time cheek pieces at Naas last time out, and he jumped fences like a little bunny rabbit, looked a happy horse, and I don't think this race is any harder than last year's race. And there was 13 lengths and daylight back to the third that day, so...
No Paul Bay this year.
No Paul Bay, who beat him a short head last year. I just think... Why isn't he a lot shorter? So Billaway is my nap in the Fox Hunter on the Friday.
I could have had 20 guesses there and I'd never go with Pat with the selection for the Fox Hunters.
But you haven't got something for the cross-country chase as well?
No.
Okay. Tiger roll.
So in confirmation that Pat Cooney's best bet of the Cheltenham Festival is Billaway in the Hunters Chase on Friday, the St James's Place Fox Hunters Chase.
That's it.
Or something.
What's your best bet for the third day?
I'm hoping Lompresse turns up in the Turners. I think he's one of the best horses trained in Britain, at least.
Yeah.
So I would love him. You?
Imperial Alcazar for me in the plate.
Imperial Alcazar. Well, that's a look at the Thursday of the festival. I hope that in and amongst that chat, we have pointed you in the right direction. We've certainly pointed you in a few different directions. Delighted on Racing Weekly to now be joined by one of the famous faces of the Cheltenham Festival, a man who's ridden 9 festival winners in his time, including our Connor in the Triumph back in 2013, Don Poley in the RSA in 2015, Mrs Milner last year in the Pertemps, and if you haven't guessed by now, he also scaled the highest of highs at the Cheltenham Festival when Don Cossack won the Gold Cup back in 2016. It is, of course, Bryan Cooper. Bryan, thank you for joining us so much. I suspect that although there may not be a Don Cossack on your book of rides, it's quite an exciting time for anyone who's got the prospect of going to the festival.
Yes, definitely. So it's been a very lucky place for me, and especially kind of more this week now, you really start getting into gear. You know, you're trying to sort out your rides closer to the time, and I'm really looking forward to it. Just before we talk about the future and what's to come of the festival, just indulge us a little bit and take us back to 2016 and what it was like to, I said, scale the highest high on Don Cossack in the Gold Cup. Is that, how would you describe it? Yeah, I suppose, look, to me, growing up, it was the race I always dreamt of winning. You know, maybe some people it's a Grand National, but I grew up watching Denman, Cotto Star, all those fantastic horses, and to win it at such a young age and to win it overall was just fantastic. That was the cue card year, was it?
Well, it's made me feel old. I was about 40 when Cotto Star was winning. So, Bryan, obviously there has been bumps in the road. Sorry to bring this down a notch or two, but you know, being the pessimistic Midlander I am, that there has been some quite considerable bumps in the road for you, but you've become resurgent in the last couple of years, which is great to see. Do you think all that fame from the early years, the Our Connor, I mean, I can't believe that's 9 years ago, Our Connor, that's astonishing. But the sort of Our Connors, the Don Poleys, Don Cossacks, do you think that came a little bit early in your career, perhaps?
Yeah, I suppose I was very young, and I probably didn't maybe appreciate it all at the time. And it's only when you go through a dry spell, you sit back and you say, right, we should have appreciated these bigger days a slightly better. And I suppose last year, to me, getting a winner there after maybe going 2 to 3 years not riding a winner there, I can tell you it's a very lonely place driving out there on a Friday evening when you're used to riding winners there. So last year's winner on Miss Milner really made me realise how important it is to ride winners there, and I really appreciated that one.
Yeah, I bet. There was no crowds there, but I bet it didn't mean any less to you.
No, well, I felt sorry for a lot of the lads maybe who rode their first winner there, but to me, on a personal note, it was just very important for my career to show that I was still able to deliver there on the big day, and you know, it was just one that will be up towards the top of that list.
Yeah, and that sort of culminated a really good spell for you, because you had your Leopardstown Grade 1 winner, a Punchestown winner as well afterwards. So all of a sudden, from being very fashionable to a little bit less fashionable to becoming fashionable again, it's been a great roller coaster for you. Yeah,
someone said to me the other day, it's kind of like shark teeth, the graph. It's up and down a bit, but hopefully we can keep it up towards the top now and make the most of the opportunities I'm given.
Well, no bigger stage to advertise your skills, obviously, as you know, Bryan, than the Cheltenham Festival. So perhaps you could just give us a brief summary of the horses that you're looking forward to riding over the 4 days.
Yeah, there's still a lot up in the air. I definitely have I've 3 for Paul Nolan, Miss Milner in the Mayor's Hurdle, HMS Seahorse in the Fred Winter, and Standard again in the Champion Bumper. I think I've 1 or 2 for Joseph O'Brien, and then obviously I've been picking up some nice spares for Willie Mullins over the last year or 2 as well. So hopefully we can get a couple off him as well. It'd be great.
He runs about 5 in every race, Bryan, so there's every chance.
Yeah, we got a couple of nice ones there last year. So look, hopefully I can be part of the team there again, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, talk us through Mrs. Milner's chances in the Mayor's Hurdle. And you mentioned, obviously, her success in the race last year when she won the Pertemps, and how she's going to transfer that ability from last year to what looks a fairly good race this time around.
Yeah, look, it's a big step up, but I think her run in Newbury kind of maybe reads a little bit, or it looks better than what it reads. She had a hard enough race on her first run back in Limerick, and we feel she's probably a better filly more coming into the springtime. So the lads have left her fresh. She's going here, in great form. I think it's going to be a strongly run race with obviously Stormy Island in it, which will play into my effects maybe late on in the race. We'll probably be riding her to finish in the first 3, but I think Paul Nolan's horses definitely run nearly more above themselves when they get to Cheltenham. His runners over the last couple of years have all finished in the frame, and I'm looking forward to her now for the week. I think she'll definitely run a big race.
9-1 on the oddschecker grid, Mrs. Milner. You also touched on another horse that Sam and I were chatting about before we started speaking to you, and that's HMS Seahorse, who obviously was with Aidan O'Brien on the flat. He's had 3 runs now over hurdles. He's getting better with each one, and there's obviously the Tide Turns, who's beaten him in the Boodles, the handicap for the juveniles. Can you give us a bit of confidence that you could certainly turn the form around with the Tide Turns, and he's a big player in that race?
I think so. He's a hardy little sort now, and I think it's a race that will suit him. He's not big, but he's tough, and he's jumping. He's getting better with each run, and he's got a lovely racing weight. And I think he loved the hustle and bustle, and he's a horse. I think with that bit of drier ground over there as well will definitely play into his effect. And I wouldn't swap him for many in the race now at the minute. I think he'll definitely improve a lot. The lads haven't had him that long. He only came to Paul's yard there, I think the week of Christmas. So he's getting in more amongst used to things in the yard. I think his first run he was 3rd in probably what was the best juvenile hurdle ran all year behind Vauban and Gordon's horse. So I'm looking forward to him definitely. He is, yeah. And I just looking at him, he's a real hardy little type, and I think the hustle and bustle of Cheltenham will really suit him.
Yeah, I like the fact that he's already encountered a couple of big fields, Bryan, and he's coped with those well.
Yeah, definitely. And, he was bought on kind of my recommendation. I wrote him in a bit of work before the lads bought him, and I kind of said he should get you to the Fred Winter. So he's got me this far now. So I'd like to think if he does win, the owners will be extra kind.
Well, then I'm glad that we're riding the same boat with you, because I like him as well. But one thing you just did there was that you sort of highlighted some of the qualities that are necessary to be successful at the festival. And just to use your skills and your knowledge, Bryan, having won the Gold Cup, when you look at the field for this year's race, and someone gave you a magic wand and you could choose who you would ride in the Gold Cup, which horse would you go for?
Oh, I don't know. I love Malella Indo's comeback run the last day in Leopardstown. I wrote a story for Longe, and there was a lot of positives to take out of it. I think it was nearly a better run than last year, and I only watched back his Gold Cup win last year. He came up the straight from the back of the last. It was 2 ears pricked, and his form around the course is great. Henry's horses have definitely the last 2 weeks or so have turned the corner. He's getting plenty winners, and if I was offered a ride on him tomorrow morning, I definitely wouldn't be turning it down.
No, he'd give you some thrill, I think, wouldn't he? He just looked at it again, Leopardstown, didn't he? The way he hit the line.
He did, yeah. Like I travelled really well, and I was steering to the second last and made a mistake. And you know, I thought I followed Milalindo. I thought he'd take me into the race well, and they got away from me from the back of the second last. But there was a lot of positives to take out of it. And you know, after what happened in the King George, it was a big comeback run, I thought, without winning. So if I was offered to ride on him, as I said, he'd be my pick at the minute. Course form, he loves that track, and I'm sure he'll give Robbie Power a tremendous spin.
You'd take him over Asterion for launch, would you?
I'll take any ride in it at the minute anyway, definitely. Whichever's going, it's a great race to ride in, and if I get offered to ride in Astorian, I definitely won't turn it down, because the day you get off him will probably be the day he'll land that big pot.
Yes.
You could never be sure, though, with him, can you? Bryan, let's just ask you about a couple of other big races, and there are a couple of shorties, as we know. There's the likes of Honeysuckle in the Champion Hurdle, Allaho in the Ryanair. Now, imagine you're riding against Honeysuckle. Obviously, I'm sure you'd like to ride Honeysuckle, but against Honeysuckle, is there a way that she can be beaten? Is there any hope for anyone else in the race?
Well, it is Cheltenham, so you never say there's never not a hope, but I've ridden against her a lot of times in Ireland, and I've made the run and tried to go slow, tried to turn into a gallop, and it doesn't seem to matter what we do over here. Rachel just has so much confidence in her. If we're going quick, she's happy to let us off. If we're going slow, I think, was it last year in the Irish Champion Hurdle, I rode Petite Mouchoir for Gordon, and I tried to set it up down the back, and Rachel just arrived up my outside 5 out and set sail, not a bother on her, you know. So she seems unbeatable, but you can never say that around Cheltenham. I'd say Paul Townend and Robbie, who would probably ride Appreciate, and Robbie Power on Tube, who will be studying this more so than any race, trying to see what way they can beat her. But at the minute, she looks unbeatable, and she's a fantastic mare.
And similarly with Allaho, after that win in the Ryanair last year, and then the way he thumped Fakir Dudery last time, everyone's looking at him as another certainty. Is that how you see the Ryanair again?
Yeah, I think it's probably a weaker race this year. Without, you know, there's never a weak race in Cheltenham, but you know, it was a competitive last year, and I rode Melon in it last year, and the race was over. There was a lot of horses, their chance was completely gone when we were turning out for that last circuit down the back straight. He was just gone and into a different rhythm, and I think it's his track. You know, he gets into a lovely flowing rhythm. I was very impressed with him in Thurles this year, nearly more so than last year. So he just looks a proper Ryanair type. He jumps, he goes a gallop. You know, reminds me a bit like Undaso when he won it. He just gets into that rhythm, and he's very hard to peg back.
And just how do you see the Queen Mother Champion chase, Bryan, as well, with the big head-to-head, or do you think it's a race that features one or two other possibles as well?
I think it's a 3-horse race. I'm a big Chacun Poursoir fan. You know, he's got I've ridden against him a lot, and I've turned in thinking I've had a massive chance some days, and he's just, when he's on a going day, he's exceptionally good. And it's interesting to read that Willie is maybe going to do things a little different with him on the run up to Cheltenham this year. And you know, I thought he was very impressive at the Dublin Racing Festival. I'd forgive him for last year's race. Maybe it was kind of a falsy run race. We didn't go overly quick, and there was a bunch of us turning into the straight from the back of the third last, and probably a falsy run race didn't suit him. Again, Energy Mean, I thought if there was ever a ride of the year to get beat, it was probably Paul Townend in Ascot against Shiskin. It was fantastic to watch, and you know, he didn't deserve to get beaten. But I'd love to see Chacun win it, but it's Shiskin just reminds me a little bit like Altior. He's only doing enough, and he kicks into top gear in that last furlong and a half. He seems very hard to pass.
Yeah, he's one of those horses that just seems to get the job done no matter what the challenge is ahead of him. Last thing before you go, Bryan, and thank you so much for the time. If you could give us the horse that you're most looking forward to riding at the moment, as you know, and then one horse that you think will definitely win at the festival, regardless of whether or not you're riding or not.
Not asking for much, Bryan.
Rides wise, you know, it's hard. Obviously, I've a lovely book for for Paul Nolan and being part of the Willie Mullins camp, you don't know what you're going to be thrown on until 5 minutes to 12 at declaration time. I'd love to get on one of his nice novices. Hot on Colour fell with me at the Dublin Racing Festival here in the Irish Arkle. He was one of the rides I was very much looking forward to that weekend. I'd love another crack at him. I think he's gone in under the radar a bit. He's got a massive engine, and in an Arkle, I think it's a little bit open this year. If I saw my name stuck down beside him at 12 o'clock on Sunday morning, I'd be very happy.
All right. Hot on Colour is 7-1 on the oddschecker grid for the Arkle. And outside of that, Brian, just one horse for us that you think, regardless of conditions and everything else, is going to be the one that they will have to beat in any race.
Oh, I think I'm going to go with Manella Indo in the Gold Cup. I think his record around the track is great. Albeit he got bet in the RSA. There's not many Gold Cup winners you see come up that straight with their ears pricked from the back of the last. And watching that there last week again, when I just had a rewatch of the race, I think he's coming into form at the right time. And what Henry did in Cheltenham with his horses last year was unbelievable. And I think he's the one they all have to beat come this next Friday.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I have to say, it's been a real pleasure listening to your thoughts on the Cheltenham Festival and your rides. In particular, I'm shouting you home on HMS Seahorse, so good luck with that.
We'll be able to give you a mention at the top of the hill next Tuesday.
Well, I'll be looking out for you at the top of the hill after the line. Thank you very much to Bryan Cooper, a superstar in the saddle, back at the top of the game once again, and long may he stay there. Here on Racing Weekly, though, we're now going to focus on Friday at the festival. Well, great to catch up with Bryan Cooper, but now time for Sam and I to have a look ahead to the final day of the festival. Sam, we'll start off with the Triumph Hurdle, a race again that we've discussed before.
Yep.
Just to reiterate, for you sticking with Vauban?
Yeah, I'm a big Vauban fan, have been for a while. Thought he was a bit unlucky at Punchestown behind Pied Piper. We've talked about that race, off and on through Racing Weekly for a number of weeks. And, he built on that promise in the Spring Juvenile, which is traditionally one of the strongest trials run in the season. Thought he did a fair bit wrong that day as well, still showing it signs of inexperience, drifting out a couple of times to his right. He was quite free. Paul Townend was obviously keen just to keep him wide, to help his jumping, to help him find some rhythm, and he still bolted up.
Yeah, you remind me of the last conversation we had when I said, well, he's done things wrong before, he could do wrong things again. But I respect that, the ability that he showed despite doing things
exactly. Wrong. You're judging Vauban by your own standings.
Just keep making the same mistakes twice. I like Vauban. I think he's an outstanding horse. But I give a bit of an each-way shout to Dr. Parnassus in that race. Who's run twice for the Skeltons and won impressively both times. He looks like he's a better horse already over hurdles than he was, and he was useful enough on the flat for David Amara.
My each-way shout would be Elate Tate Ton, beautifully pronounced, if you could imagine.
I thought I was in France there.
Just absolutely. I just thought it was a really encouraging run in the Spring Juvenile. It's obviously solid form, isn't it? And if you're looking for a play at, I don't know, what would it be, 14-1?
Yeah, 14s.
I think that's a touch of value. Yes, I get the fact that there's not a lot of experience there, but by Jukebox Jury, who's making a really good name for himself as a National Hunt sire, to be beaten 5 lengths on your debut at 40-1, I thought was a really good performance. Next
race I'll mention is the Albert Bartlett, and we have a question here from Nick Cadman, by the way. He says, is Manila Kakuna being overlooked for races at Cheltenham? Plenty claiming that he stole the Nathaniel Lacey, which obviously took place at the Dublin Racing Festival. But I thought he jumped exceptionally and found a gear on the bend.
Yeah, and I think one or two people have, myself included probably, guilty of sending plaudits to Danny Mullins for his ride and allowing him to get a free rein at the head of affairs is a very, very dangerous situation for riders in behind. And he exploited that. Tactically, he was very sound, but he had to have a willing partner as well.
He did.
And I do think there's a doubt that a bit of a danger that we are underestimating Manila Kakuna. We don't know what race he's going to go for. For me, he looked all day long a 3-miler. Whether he goes that way or not. Willie Mullins has been quite reticent to run him in the Albert Bartlett or to nominate the Albert Bartlett as a possible for him. I don't think he's in love with that race, so you could end up seeing him in the Ballymore. But I think he's a very talented horse.
I agree. So Hillcrest, 4-1 fav at the moment.
This race. Before Hillcrest won at Haydock, and we drilled down into the data and the figures a little bit, and the fact that he was quicker than Porticello from the bottom of the straight, and he was 8 seconds quicker than the Rendell Sherman, all that sort of stuff, reinforced what a beast he is. I was very much a Minella Crooner fan. I thought he ran really well at the DRF in that race. Minella Kakuna won, pinched from the front. He left his hind legs in the second last when he was coming with a run. He just looked as though he was just going to move onto the heels of the leader and deliver a great challenge. I thought he did really well to finish as close up as he did in what some people perceive to be a tactically run affair. And I just thought, for all the world, he looks a 3-miler. Just one of those gallopers that from the second last to the last, he's going to be grinding away when everything else is dropping away. Unfortunately, Hillcrest won't be dropping away because he's an absolute beast himself. So this race for me, I think I likened it elsewhere to, trying to pick between Kylie and Danny Minogue. I mean, the correct answer is Natalie and Brullier, obviously, but between the two of them, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But between the two of them, it's really difficult for me to pick between them. I think I'll probably, if Hillcrest comes here in really good nick and good order, and Henry Daly tells me that he's fine, he's been great since Haydock, his Cheltenham experience, I think I'll probably just plump for him.
Now I'm thinking of Margot Robbie, Holly Valance. You've done it. So long to Neighbours, by the way.
Oh.
A staple. Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Hillcrest, super horse, and I really hope he wins, and I hope he lives up to all the expectations. So far, he's done nothing wrong. He's a tremendously exciting prospect. The Gold Cup on Friday, we've discussed this race a number of times. I think at the outset, I laid my cards on the table. It was Minella Indo and Album Photo as 2 previous winners of the race. I was happy to stick with those 2, and I certainly am still happy. Yeah. Despite 1 or 2 murmurings of unhappiness from Willie Mullins about Album Photo. He's just come back.
Apparently the last couple of pieces of work have been a lot better, which is encouraging. What's going to make the running here, Rish?
That is a good question.
Perhaps now he's got into
he's
the
gone
race.
On that race, yeah.
As soon as they heard that I put him up for the ultimate, the next day, bang, he's in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought Minella Indo could be handy, but who's definitely going to go on? It's a very good question.
You can't see a lot of pace, can you? I mean, people saying, Santini might make the running.
Is he quick
Have you
enough?
seen him in last year's race? I know he's probably been turned inside out by new connections and they've put him in the right frame of mind, but I don't see that either. Lack of pace will suit a Plutard and props not Galvin. I wonder whether Davy Russell might slide along.
Could do. Album Photo, when he won his first Gold Cup, it was
handy, wasn't he?
And it was also a relatively slowly run race.
Yes.
And there were loads in with a chance at the end, and actually Paul Santini was running on at the end of the race. So it's possible that scenario might play out again.
Yeah, quite conceivably. I'm staying with Galvin. I think he's improving, apparently, if you read the comments.
Yeah.
I think he's ridden by a phenomenal rider, which I think you can't underestimate in races of this nature.
Yeah. A lot of experts looking through predictions of the Gold Cup are siding with Galvin. I wouldn't be surprised if he went off a clear favourite on the day. At the moment, joint favourites on the oddschecker grid, Plutard and Galvin 7-2, Minella Indo 5s, Protector at 8s, and then 10s or bigger the remainder.
What's your view Protector at? Because he looks like he's going to be the chief British representative.
I'd be surprised if he gets in the first 3.
Would you?
I can't see any reason why he's as short as he is. Based on his form. He's got potential, yes, don't deny that, and he's a young horse. Youngest of the principals, so I give him that.
Yeah.
But if he is as short as he is judged on that run at Aintree, which has got more holes in it than a string vest, then I cannot see...
I'm done that for a while.
I heard someone say the other day, I quite enjoyed it.
Well, he's beaten horses since retired, hasn't he?
Yeah, Native River.
And he operated really well on the go. I'm not quite as negative on him as you, because I think he likes the track. He's got a very solid profile. I think he'll improve for the step up in trip. I don't see him winning the Gold Cup, if I'm honest, but I think he is trained by a master. He's improving, and so you can never be sure. But on what he's achieved, I'll be surprised if he... down on your list, really. Okay, fair enough. Other races on final day, County... St James Place. West Corkin in the county. That's right. Reminder that Steve Mellish liked Echoes in Rain in that. You can certainly see that. Yeah, most definitely. I don't know if Quilixios is going to run in that. There might be a few refugees from the Champion Hurdle that might try. Get moved into that. Most definitely. Okay. The St James's Place Fox Hunters. I think that's ably covered by Pat Cooney. Bill Away. The Mare's Chase. Yeah, Ellie May.
Ellie Mae. Concertista was the horse that I liked. I like the way she's jumped so far. I think she's looked pretty good in her career of offences so far this season. She's
definitely been confirmed for this rather than the mares.
Not definite for either race yet. She's short enough in both markets.
She's a definite positive. A definite possible.
Yeah.
So I like Ellie Mae with the cheek pieces on last time. I thought it turned her inside out a little bit. I'm quite taken with her. She was a little bit unfortunate in the race last year not to win. The last race I haven't got into fully yet with all the Martin plots, Pipe. But if Napper's Hill ran, I did like his performance at Newbury. Paul Nicholls' horses were bang out of nick that day. There was only Braveman's Game that probably won for 2 weeks. And yet Napper's Hill went through the line quite strongly. I thought that was a good effort.
And Langer Dan?
The best handicapped horse in training. Got dropped for Taunton.
Incredible. And only bumped into 1 Too Good last year. So
he wasn't a bad horse, was he?
He turned out all right. Yeah, the form has got a boost since. Just in summary, on day 4. By the way, the one horse I wanted to ask before we wrap up, the State Man, who's favourite for that Martin Pipe, what race is he going to run? He's favourite for the Coral Cup, the County and the Martin Pipe, isn't he?
Yeah, he's also second favourite for the Midlands National, fancy for the Derby. I wouldn't begin to try and second guess where he's going. I can't even guess where Galopin de Champ's going to run, and he's got 2 options, so I've got no chance with State Man.
Best bet on day 4 of the festival?
Galvin at this stage.
Okay, Galvin, I'm sticking with, and I hate to say it, I'm going against you, Manila Indo. I think he's the most solid.
Are we having a little side?
I think so.
Ice creams?
Well, I think maybe that we
should buy ice creams.
Maybe something a bit more substantial than that.
Okay.
So,
Really?
Ice cream's not going to cut it.
Well, but I don't move in your circles, do I? You know.
I just meant a bigger meal. That's all.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Could be from anywhere, and any good fast food outlet that's available out there. It doesn't have to be anything.
That suits me.
Okay.
With chips.
With
standard.
Chips. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty certain.
Sorry, that was a stupid question.
Well,
sorry.
Kind of like, why would you not? Okay, so Manila Indo versus Galvin for us.
Yeah.
And overall, Sam, at the meeting at this year's festival, which is the one?
Crikey.
Yeah.
Now you've put the cat amongst the pigeons. I'll go Cœur Sublime in the Grand Annual.
Cœur Sublime in the Grand Annual. Okay. Well, obviously, as you know, as I mentioned, I think probably a million times, whatever race Sir Gerhard runs in. And I hope it's the Supreme. He's a horse that excites me most about the festival and what he might do in the future. And I do like Remastered in that Pertemps final. I think it's an interesting move from Connections to have him back over hurdles and over £10 lower mark. So
one thing I've noticed more than anything about this year is there seem to be some really good matchups that could be bubbling up.
Yeah, absolutely right. This year's festival, despite what we say, and sometimes we get a little bit down on it and say, well, yes, there are options for other horses to run in other races. We do have the potential for some amazing matchups, and each day of the festival, we're looking at exciting things. So happy with that. Just before we close off, just a few more questions, if that's all right.
Right. Okay.
You okay? You ready? We're going to quick fire.
Okay. Quick fire. Go on then.
From Alex Keating, if L'Empresse goes to the Brand Advisory, can he serve it up to Brave Man's Game and a Hoist Senior over 3 miles? How important are jockey bookings? And besides the obvious, who's worth marking up based on their pilot?
Oh, good question. I definitely think that L'Empresse can serve it up to both of them. He's been round Cheltenham, he jumps beautifully. I don't see the trip being an issue as long as it's not a bog.
Okay.
I think even if it was soft ground, I think he'd run particularly well. Who else are we marking up?
How important are the jockey bookings?
Very.
Who is worth marking up based on their pilot? Charlie Deutsch.
Charlie Deutsch. Any horse that Davy Russell rides.
Any horse that Davy Russell rides. That's a pretty strong one. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. No. Adam O'Connor says, thank you, Adam, by the way, for another question. With the Irish dominance set for another Cheltenham Festival, some of the better chances for Britain looking to head to Aintree, do we think there will ever be a whitewash in the Prestbury Cup?
No, I don't think there will be.
I think it's going to be closer this year.
Adam's been on the show more than I have.
He's getting more money as well. And the last question is, Rob James is a high-profile claimer taking off a valuable £7 on Gordon Elliott's big chances in the National Hunt Chase and the Pertemps. To what extent does Sam take the relative weight pull of claimers into account when backing horses at Cheltenham, or is it a bit overblown?
I think it's a bit overblown for me. I don't put a lot of store in weights per se, to be honest. Otherwise, we haven't got time to delve into it now. But what I do like is these young riders that are coming through that have a good start, have a good bit of confidence, and then just win race after race after race, and they just go out there with no fear. And I like that. It's almost like an England batting lineup that hasn't been played in too many ashes before. They hopefully go into it with a little bit of a little bit of enthusiasm and no mental scars. And I think that can be the same sometimes with riders.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Sam, thank you very much for that. That is it for this edition of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you so much to Bryan Cooper, to Paul Ferguson, and to Pat Cooney. Tune in next week on the eve of the festival, when we'll go into further detail on the handicaps and again be joined by some famous guests from the world of racing. We are here this Monday, next Monday, in the lead up to the Cheltenham Festival. If you like what you've heard or watched, then leave a review on Apple Podcasts or in the comment section on YouTube. It will certainly mean a whole lot to us. We're getting ever closer to the big day itself, the first day of the Cheltenham Festival, not that far away now. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Racing Weekly. From Sam and myself, goodbye.